what we had assessed and reassessed and carefully gone over still stands, and that it was important to take that stand on behalf of the intelligence community, on behalf of the American people. As we have seen, the President has made statements relative to in support of that, which I appreciate. The latest being on I think one of your rival networks. Give you the privilege of not naming them, so keep NBC in front here. So therefore, it was a part of my role, and I felt that it was important that I do that. It has been said, it has been discussed personally with the President, and I think it's time to move on.
Well, except that the President has made so many conflicting statements. He has switched from one position to the other even in the same day, as recently as yesterday. And I'm wondering, when you watched that in Helsinki, what was your gut reaction watching him validate Vladimir Putin's assessment over yours?
Well, my thoughts there were that I believed I needed to correct the record for that, and that this is the job I signed up for, and that was my responsibility. Obviously, I wished he had made a different statement, but I think that now that has been clarified based on his late reactions to this, and so I don't think I want to go any further than that.
Well, in the cabinet room, one of the statements that you referred to, his clarifications, he said, "I accept our intelligence community's conclusion that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election took place. Could be other people also." Could be other people also? What does he know that you don't know?
Well, could is not a definitive word here. That I mean, could someone else be looking at how to do this relative to our elections, possibly rogue states, whatever? We know others have potential capability, but it's undeniable that the Russians are taking the lead on this. Basically, they are the ones that are trying to undermine our basic values, divide us with our allies. They are the ones that are trying to wreak havoc over our election process.
What about China?
We need to call them out on that. It's critical that we do so, and to then take steps to make sure that they are not able to do this with the election coming up. Learn the lessons from the past, put in place the things that we need to put in place in terms of making sure that we can guarantee to the American public when they walk in that voting booth and cast their vote, however they cast it, it is a valid vote. It will not be tampered with, and whatever result comes from these elections is something the American people can have confidence in, that it was not manipulated by anyone, whether that was externally or internally. We know politically there have been times when parties have tried to manipulate the votes one way or another. That just simply is not acceptable. The very pillar basics of democracy is the ability to have confidence in your elected officials that they were elected legitimately, and we have to take every effort to ensure that that happens in this upcoming election and future elections.
And just to nail this down, the 2017 intelligence assessment of the community, the findings said Putin and the Russian government developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. 18 months later, has anything changed that would make it more or less certain that it was Vladimir Putin in charge of that?
Well, I don't want to get too far into what the investigation that's going on and what they may produce from that.
But in terms of the intelligence assessment?
Well, we just continue to provide intelligence that we achieve relative to our customers, which is the President, which are the policymakers in the White House, which is our oversight committees in the House and the Senate, and that basis that is available to them, and we will keep doing that. Relative to what's coming in 2018, as Director Nielsen said this morning, DHS does not have evidence of the fact that anywhere near what happened in 2016. However, despite that, we absolutely cannot just rest on that assumption. As I mentioned in my speech at Hudson just a week ago or so, it's just one click of the keyboard that could change this narrative. And so we have to be ever vigilant on this, and I think we have to be relentless in terms of calling out the Russians for what they've done. We have to be vigilant in terms of putting steps in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. More transparency we can have relative to this issue, the better.
Men and women who work for you are working around the clock.
They are.
Around the world, and putting their lives on the line in many cases to make sure that our democracy is safe. What do you say to them when the president disavows their work, or others in our government disavows their work and criticize their work?
I say to our people also around the world and in the 16 agencies within the United States, I say to them, we are professionals. We are here to provide professional service to our government. We need to keep our heads down. We need to go forward with the wonderful technological capabilities that we have to produce intelligence. There's a lot of political swirl going around. Just do your jobs. Our goal is to make unpoliticized information necessary for our policymakers to make good decisions. And so try to get up every morning, go to work, do your job. If you have thinking in one way or another way relative to a plus or a minus, set that aside. You go home and think about it, whatever. But the product that you are putting together has to be absent from any kind of political manipulation.
In Helsinki, the president was alone with Vladimir Putin for 2 hours, more than 2 hours, with only translators. Basically, how do you know what happened? You were on the dark side of the moon. How do you have any idea what happened in that meeting?
Well, you're right. I don't know what happened in that meeting. I think as time goes by, and the president has already mentioned some things that happened in that meeting, I think we will learn more. But that is the president's prerogative. If he had asked me how that ought to be conducted, I would have suggested a different way. But that's not my role. That's not my job. So it is what it is.
Is there a risk that Vladimir Putin could have recorded it?
That risk is always there.
Is there a risk?
That's a
that the soccer
guarantee he
ball could have
recorded
been
it.
wired?
Was that a World Cup soccer ball, or was that we have ability to measure those kinds of things to determine whether or not they are.
I kind of figured you did.
Every time I come home with, there's a limit to what they can give you if you meet with your foreign adversaries. All that has to go through the.
I want to stop right there. First of all, they're in Aspen, Colorado, which is give or take about 20 miles from Basalt, Colorado, a town that I worked at and lived in momentarily until the individual that I was working for decided that they was going to wind up trying to hoodoo me or do me wrong. That wound up costing them about $2,000 because of this unprofessional behavior. Aspen, Colorado is probably one of the richest, well-known areas in the country pertaining to football players and movie stars and high political officials that live out in the area. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. But what our intel communities are actually saying and what they're doing, once more, it's a reflection upon the Indian red man that said, "White man speaketh with forked tongue." The bottom line is they have created a monster throughout the world pertaining to cyberspace, the internet, and the American people have been lax. They have been slackers. whenever it comes to staying on top of their game. And if the truth be known, the people that we should be more concerned about, a whole lot more than Russia, is China and their hacking abilities and these practices that that can go in and hack into Sony and infiltrate major banking industries as well as military compound bases. We have to be on top of our game, and this is where I think the intel community here in America has failed. They have failed miserably because all you got to do is look at what went on during 9/11. You don't see airplanes flying off into other embassies and other heads of state all over the other world pertaining to 9/11. But they have failed, and they're rolling it back. They're crawfishing, and they're once more saying one thing, but in actuality, they're doing something completely, totally different. It's confusion, and it's the work of the devil. It's exactly what our chief and commander continues to keep preaching to the American people, pertaining to it being a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. If the truth be known, the American people should be grateful that the intel community coming out of the Russian Federation is basically trying to wake our intel community up over here by saying, hey, wake up, can't you see what's going on? In other words, they need to sharpen their pencils. They need to get better equipment. They need to get smarter people in there. That way they can prevent possibly another major attack like 9/11 that occurred whenever it occurred. Please listen to some more of this.
First learned about ISIS when they started slicing off heads. And we identified ISIS as a 7th century barbarism. That was just totally unacceptable. And where did this come from? And where did this theology come from? At the same time they were slicing off heads, they were operating a sophisticated cyber program to reach out, to recruit people, to give them instructions, inspire them to take acts, to join this movement, this jihadist movement.
Right.
Through some very capable ways of using cyber, sophisticated ways.
They was using it as a weapon.
The danger that cyber can provide if you do it in nefarious ways. We see that, it's everything from a sophisticated nation with a lot of capabilities, to rogue states, to criminal organizations, to a kid sitting in his dorm room that can wreak havoc on our economy, wreak havoc on our country, on our critical infrastructure. We are throwing everything we have at it to prevent that from happening, but it has become, in my mind, and what I stated in the threat assessments, up there at the top. And we need to understand that. I was worried about a complacency. Every day you hear 120 million people's names have been snatched from the Equifax or this or that or whatever. Yeah, okay. And they've probably got stuff from you and through your phone. You should be changing your password every week. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I can't remember a password anyway, et cetera, et cetera. There's a complacency and an acceptance of what's happening out there that, well, this is just what it is. This is just the result of it. And so I'm concerned about, you're going to say, what do you worry at night? I'm concerned about a cyber 9/11.
What would that look like?
Well, let's say you shut down Wall Street for a week. What does that do to world markets and people's investments? Let's say you crash a Bank of America or Wells Fargo or whatever, and all of a sudden people are saying, wait a minute, what happened to my account? What happened to my retirement? Oh, we'll get it back, okay. Well, we've seen this, and we've seen coverage of that. We haven't seen the big one. What about an attack on the electric grid in New England in January that maybe is sophisticated enough to take it out for 3 days? How many people will die from -degree weather on that? I mean, those are the things that I think you have to try to anticipate. What are the capabilities that our adversaries now have if they wanted to use them?
And they do want to use them.
My mind is a legend, and I look to him for advice on regular breakfast. I won't tell you where we meet, but These are things I think strategically we have to look forward. Tom Clancy.
I tried to warn the American people up around Paducah, Kentucky, while fasting and praying in the land between the lakes, that electrical disturbances was coming. This was in 2000, the fall of 2008, whenever I made these predictions. I think it was 2008. It may have been 2007. But anyways, in 2009, they had a major ice storm up into that area that devastated about 80, 85 counties, that actually shut Kentucky down to the point that it had to be placed under a state of an emergency by the governor, which put out the National Guard. All right? These electrical disturbances that I was referring to solar flares and meteor bombardments up onto this planet, as well as other natural catastrophes that can occur, regardless whether it was an ice storm or a hurricane that devastates our electrical system. The computer software high-tech industry is also in that same analogy that I had tried to bring a forewarning to, pertaining to electrical disturbances to come. And I was treated up in Kentucky like a barbarian. I was treated up in Kentucky like a heathen. I had to go to Four Rivers Behavior Center on account of it, and ultimately it costed me a trip to MCC in downtown Chicago in 2010, and then in 20 and 10, and then in 20 and 12 and 20 and 13, it costed me another trip to LaGrange, Kentucky, simply because I was trying to help the Homo sapiens up onto this planet. Not hurt them, but I was giving out advisories pertaining to electrical disturbances. But because I'm dealing with a bunch of people that has come off of a drug culture dilemma, that began back in the late 50s, early 60s, these people, for some reason, wanted to say, hey, this guy's threatening us. No, I have never been trying to threaten the American people. Just like whenever I sent a t-shirt to the 43rd President of the United States in 2005, pertaining to a bloody road ahead. It was not meant or intended as a threat. It was intended as a advisory, a warning. Kind of like that space movie back years ago. I forgot the name of it, but that had that little robot on it that would say, danger, 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 danger. That's all that I was doing, but it wound up ultimately costing me time and money, and now they have scarred me for life, pertaining to how that they have illegitimately, unprofessionally treated the very thing that I tried to warn them that could and would possibly occur. The big one is coming. The big one is coming. And I don't know if it's going to happen through the involvement of man pertaining to a terrorist attack. I don't know if it's going to happen because of a solar flare or a meteor hitting the planet, or even coming real close to the planet. That would be devastating to ain't no telling how many satellites up in space. But the big one is coming. And whenever it comes, it could possibly throw the world off into the dark ages, to the point that we'll be out here walking around wondering, my God, what's happened to my bank account? My God, what's happened to my electrical system up in, like the guy was talking about, up in New England. My God, what has went on here pertaining to the lights being turned off? It'd be just total chaos down here up onto the planet, and you can't tell me that that's exactly what our adversary, which is Satan, wants to do, because the Bible says that he's out to kill, steal, and destroy, and that he is the author of confusion. And right now, what we're seeing on all these major networks, not only here in America, but throughout the world, pertaining to the summit meeting that Donald Trump was just involved in over in Russia, is exactly that. It's total confusion. Once more, the big one hasn't happened yet. But whenever it does, I want people to look back during this era and say, well, you know what? There was an individual by the name of Juby that was the founder of the Windmill Ministries Missions at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, that tried to warn them ahead of time that there was going to be major electrical disturbances. And they crucified this guy because he was trying to help them. Now, what kind of a mixed up society do we have over here in the Continental pertaining to a culture that cannot understand the difference between a threat and an advisory or a warning? I don't see nobody going and arresting the Newsacre TV weatherman whenever there's imminent danger coming over the horizon, and they just got through putting out a tornado warning. Seek shelter immediately. I don't see nobody running and trying to arrest that TV anchorman because he's out here trying to do good for society. Well, that's exactly what they done to me. I was trying to help them up there in Kentucky, around Grand Rivers, around Benton, Kentucky. Several judges, local as well as federal, state judges up there, are fully aware of what I'm talking about right now, of it being the truth. Calvert City, Kentucky, up towards Paducah, Kentucky, where I was basically apprehended. They hauled my truck off to the state trooper pound. I don't forgot now what post it's on. It's in between Mayfield and Paducah. And then it costed me almost $200 to get it out of pound the next day, even though there wasn't no charges, and even though I wasn't under any type of doctor's order. The doctors in Four Rivers Behavior Center said, y'all need to let this man go. This man's trying to help you guys. He ain't trying to hurt you, he's trying to help you. But yet, no, they shut down a Kentucky dam. They brought in diver dogs. They involved the FBI. They involved other high-ranking officials up there in western Kentucky simply because I was trying to help these people. I've never seen a society so twisted and so upside down as what I'm looking at right now on a national, grand world scale.
Out in the way that other presidents have in the past. And I mean, even that reaction to the interview that he gave on another network, saying, basically, I'd be saying this if I were a private citizen, and okay, fine, now I'm president, but I still have the same opinion. I do think where the investors tend to be focused, though, are on the rate hikes. To your point, we're never going to know, I guess, for sure, if the Fed changes its trajectory. I have a hard time believing that Fed Chairman Powell would change the trajectory based on just some kind of off-the-cuff comments.
But he would be aware of the pressure, right? And,
yeah.
And he was telling CNBC's Joe Kernan about this, that he still thinks highly, I think I'm paraphrasing here, of
picked a good man.
Jerome Powell, you know. But that does continue a pattern. Does that pattern of sort of maybe for all the right intentions and maybe getting all the right results. Does that bother you?
You mean Trump's pattern of saying things that he
Yes.
thinks and creating that I think is going to continue doing it. He's very hands-on. He's more
I know
hands-on
that.
than any
Do you
president.
like that or dislike it?
I do.
You like it?
I do like it because I'm not a political person. Okay, I'm just a regular
But you're
person.
a
I'm
Wall
looking
Street
at these
person
things.
that doesn't like government interference, but you're okay.
Well, I mean, like I said, I don't really want rates to go up. As a regular person, you know, it's a balance. I don't
Even if they're justified going up?
justified slowly,
Okay.
slowly going up.
But do you own bank stocks? Because that's
Yeah, but I mean, you have to look at it. I don't want interest rates to go up if you want to buy a house, you have credit cards. So, like I said, being an individual and then what you do with business, you have to mirror the two.
Okay.
because that was really the group that traded down, right? Today
It
with
was.
the
It
banks.
was. And again, we finished at such a low, see the Dow down about 134 points, but you could time this really second by second because, again, as Melissa indicated, it changes mightily, and the markets themselves, of course.
I'm going to leave it right there pertaining to this in regard to what they're talking about right now. But it is a very, very crucial, sensitive, serious thing that Bill Gates and other computer gurus, regardless whether it be Al Gore, that takes part of the responsibility for creating the internet, cyberspace. It is a very, very sensitive, crucial thing that our infrastructure is now dependent upon, of rather not it be perfect towards it being right, or non-perfect towards it being wrong. And whenever you have any Tom, Dick, and Harry from wherever, regardless whether it be a 400-pound man or it be ISIS over in the Middle East, whenever they can use a tool that was supposed to be used as a tool and flip it and twist it and turn it around and use it as a weapon, weaponize it. And our politicians that helped to create this is not smart enough to either control this or dominate this, then we have a breach of security up onto our lives pertaining to what the bad guy can do with something that we thought was a tool but now can be used as a weapon. Once more, I was trying to help not just the American people but the world in bringing forth these advisories, but I was punished for it. I was ridiculed for it. I was demonized, dehumanized, and I was put into a jail cell because of it, in trying to help the Homo sapiens. That's all I gotta say. Good luck to all of us. Good luck to all of us, and shalom. Because I got a feeling that as this thing progresses and as this thing grows, it's taking on a life of its own. The computer, cyber, the internet, software, social media is taking on a life of its own. And what I'm afraid of, if we don't watch, it'll be like the movie Terminator. Instead of the humans being in control of it, it may very well take control of the humans. And I know that sounds far-fetched, and I know that sounds science fiction, and I know that sounds preposterous in a way, but, you know, if you put your thinking caps on and just reflect back 25 years ago, let's say back in early 80s, we didn't have this monster that we're looking at right now towards being a threat to society the way that we're staring down its throat right now. We didn't have this this monster that it talks about in the Bible, that in the last days the beast, and he who did not worship the beast, and he who did not take the beast's number. We didn't have this staring down our throats 25, 30 years ago. Now we do. Good luck to all of us. Shalom. See ya.